Good afternoon, everyone watching the Nubianometry podcast. Welcome to episode 004, and today we have a very interesting guest. His name is Francisco Masinde, and he's an entrepreneur. He's a Kenyan who has been living in Germany for the last, 15 years. And we are going to discuss a lot of issues in and around entrepreneurship. So, Francisco Masinde, welcome to the Nubianometry podcast, episode 004.
Thank you, Pius. I'm really glad I'm here and I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Okay. Francisco, let's start with maybe your journey to Germany. Like, you are a Kenyan, right?
Yes.
So when is it that you went to Germany and what were the reasons for migrating to Germany?
That's a great question. Wow, it takes me back. I went to Germany in 2010, 30th of September. And actually, my friend sitting over here is the one who drove me to the airport. At that time, I went to study. I got actually a student visa. Then I applied, for what's called back then student college. Because Kenyan's qualification, high school qualification, don't get you direct qualification into German university. So you have to do a bridging program, which is 10 months long, which they cover basically basic algebra and German educational system. Of course, the language you have to add on it. Then you are allowed to join university. How was my journey? Exciting at first. Well, I'm young, 19, struggling in Kenya. I've heard about Germany. My sister at the time was there in university. And the only thing I had to do, according to her, was learn the language.
Okay.
Yeah, learn the language. And we had, at the time, we were paying, I think it was 10,000 euros.
Wow.
Yeah, of course, we could not afford that amount. But a friend of my sister, who at the time in Germany, is the one who managed to pay that amount into my bank account because you have to show it.
Yeah.
I think today it's like 14,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got that support, and that's how I traveled to Germany.
Okay, interesting. And did you learn the language while you were here in Kenya or while you were in Germany?
I did. I went, I think I took around 9 months to learn the language in Kenya. The requirements for my student colleague in the time was B1 level German. I was actually a good student. The motivation, of course, was I want to leave the country, right? With any means necessary. And I learned the language in Mombasa.
So you're originally from Mombasa?
Yes, originally from Mombasa. Born there, not raised there though. I was raised in different places in Western Kenya, Kakamega, then Bungoma. But Mombasa was always home. In boarding school, you want to go to the coast. And at the time, I still had a bit of family. My parents had already retired. They were in Western Kenya, but my sister, the one I follow, was still in Mombasa. So I would still go to Mombasa.
Because I know so many people at the coast, like they've had interactions with Germans, and especially in the south coast, in Diani, it's become like a little Germany.
Yeah.
So you find some people at the coast, they know a little bit of German, A1, A2, and they tell you it's because they're working in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, the exposure there at the coast, we're there even recently with my German friends currently. And at the beach, some of the beach boys, they will speak some sentences in German, which is interesting. Actually, now our company is based in Mombasa, and that's also part of the niche which we are looking for, just to see, hey, how can we foster this to make it more interesting and accessible? Mombasa plays a huge role. Of course, it's home. Yeah. And the German connection still exists until now. And my journey actually to Germany is what led to what I'm doing now, I think, which we are going to go a bit inside, a bit deeper.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good point to transition into actually what Oki Solutions does. That's the company that you run.
Yes.
So when did you establish it? What is it about? In what areas and sectors of industries does it operate in?
Oki Solutions. Oki Solutions, it's an interesting name. A lot of people ask me what Oki Solutions mean. Actually, they don't know. So my nickname from childhood is Kiko. And Oki, well, it's just Kiko in reverse. And when we were forming,
ingenious.
yeah, I wanted something catchy, not too childish, but something memorable, but at the same time fun, enjoyable. That was the image we wanted to portray. And we formed Oki Solution, my wife and I, because of the difficulties, the challenges I went through while in Germany, settling. And those challenges were meant to be solved, we could be solved simply by information. Information, and in Kenya, we're excited about German products, German engineering, Mercedes. You see people driving them around. Kids everywhere, they know about it. But what makes those companies great? Why? And the question was, why isn't it that a lot of Kenyans from Germany are not like in the US? In Kenyans in the American diaspora, they are very active economically. And they are very well established. And given that I had this problem and I knew what the solution was, it was to figure out how do we get there. And amazingly now, the research became, I noticed in Germany, at the time we didn't find any Kenyan who owned more than 30% of a German company. Which is the GmbH. And it's not just because of the costs. That's one part, right? The Kenyans who we met at the time who were doing something, they're like doctors and they're like freelancers, or they have their own praxis and this. And when talking to them, the challenges was the area was almost blank. The area was only occupied by big exporters and big companies. But we were so determined because we knew the idea what we had. It was very strong. And the idea was now exactly to bridge the German hidden champions, the Mittelstand, to Kenya, because we said if we can expose that knowledge, and we can activate Kenyans to stop just worrying about the starters and intellectually starting thinking about, what? We understand what makes German great. We can borrow what worked for them, make it better for Kenya. But to get there, you need the exposure. And that's what we were set out to do, to answer that question.
And so the sectors you operate in as Oki Solutions, will you say it's sector specific or it's much more of a broad scope?
We have a broad scope, but at the same time, it's very specialized. So we operate from healthcare because I'm a healthcare profession. Then we have IT because, tech, you need technology if you really want people to jump, the cutting edge. So I had to get tech partners. Then we have, of course, STEM majors. You can imagine in Europe, we do have the whole green, climate change. CSR is huge. You can't do anything without sustainability. Then we do have trades because for me, we went to trade because I said Kenya, of course, we have the Jua Kali sector. So we need to target the whole economy. We cannot just say we have white collar or this. We have to activate something for everyone. And then we have institutions. This is why Oki has a lot of institutional partners in Kenya, from primary school, high schools, to university, to TVET institutions. So why I said we are also very specific in what we do, basically in the sector we go in, we look much more closely about what is the cultural context. Right? We don't want just to impose, because for me that was extremely important. I really didn't like whenever I'm seated in meetings or in Germany, then a German is trying to tell me something about Kenya. And, with a German-centric perspective.
And it happens a lot of times.
So
when I studied in Osnabrück, about 6 years ago or something of the sort, it sometimes used to rear its head. that somebody slightly, maybe not out of a bad intention, but he's like, yeah, I know a little bit about Africa. I traveled to one country, I did a safari. And you're like, yeah, that's very superficial.
Yeah. And it's the same also in the business world, how solutions are being made, right? Because remember, German is a Leistung, performance industry.
Yeah.
But Kenyan, we are not there yet, right? So, of course, they have a lot of solutions, right? But at the same time, the generation and the solutions they're innovating, they did not have the struggle of building the foundation. These structures were there. The systems were there working for them.
Yeah.
So the solution might look easy in that perspective, which is understandable, but vitu kwa ground ni different.
Kwa ground vitu ni tofauti.
Exactly. So, as a Kenyan, knowing vitu kwa ground and someone who also has the perspective of both coastal, Nairobi, I went to high school around here, as in Kikuyu. Then the rural area, and the rural area, I mean, the very rural area. Yeah. I could always see the privilege, but like you said, it's not something negative.
Yeah.
It's just there is this blinded vision you cannot see on the other side.
True.
Yeah. So basically, when we go to specificity, we look at that. So we look at the industry. Let's say we are doing upskilling in healthcare. Of course, we know Kenyan nurses or doctors are really great in what they do. Yeah. And mostly it's clinical. The German healthcare system, the complexity and how it is, the Versicherung insurance and everything. All these things don't exist in Kenya. So, but it does not mean someone is incompetent.
Yeah.
It just means they lack exposure.
Exactly.
So,
or their skill level is at a particular height.
Yes.
And it needs to be upskilled.
It needs to be upskilled. But upskilling, we didn't want to do just theory. We wanted to expose them to the industry, show them, practicability. So exactly what's happening to Germany today. I remember in high school we learned about technology and it was something which is obsolete.
Yeah.
For me, it was boring.
Exactly.
So I was just talking about this. I was actually a really bad 844 student because I lost interest.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think I had peak ADHD. And you can imagine how when you lose super interest, you become completely out.
Yeah.
So we set out, that's what Oki does is we bridge, but we bridge exactly the German industry today. What are they doing? Why do they do like that? Then we offer the exposure. So the people who, when we say we want to place Kenya in a global market, Kenya work for Kenya, right? It means we need to have access to the global market. And to have access, you're not going to sell someone in Europe and you don't even know about the European market or what they do.
Quite true.
You're not going to work there and be set up for success when you are only exposed to the Kenyan system.
Yeah.
So you need a bit this knowledge, and that's what makes us unique. And also why when we were talking about the Oki model in Germany with German companies, they said, you know what, you're going to save us a lot of onboarding time and costs. Yeah, but you just have to execute it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about Germany being a leistungsorientiert system.
Yeah.
What do you think are the main differences between the business and entrepreneurial culture in Germany as compared to Kenya?
Oh, great question. I've answered that question once and heard about it again, and I love it because it's so clear. Put it simply, Kenyans do deals. Yeah. That's the simple way to do. And Germans are more project output oriented. They have, of course, these regulations which might be rigid, but at the end of the day, they help companies of all sizes to get there. Yeah. So you have to have a structure regardless what you're doing. There is a system. And also Kenya is more social. Deals are based on who do you know?
Yeah.
Right?
So it's always called technical know-who.
Exactly. So it's
Not
super
know-how.
it's super based on socialness and who do we know which access, but it's not based on competence, unfortunately. But Germany, it's based on, first of all, what can you deliver? Yeah. How is your solution better? Yeah. let us see what you have done, this proof of concept. It's by merit. Yeah. And this kind of extreme, focus on project management, on output, input. So myself, I had to specialize to be a quality and process manager. Yeah. Because I noticed that was the key. Everything I was doing, thinking, quality, process, quality, process. Yeah. And whenever I have to deal now with most Kenyans, I have to start explaining the process thing, and they say, "Hey, you can't just do this," and unexpected, like. So that's the biggest difference I'll have to say when it comes. What's the difference between Kenya and Germany? The social aspect and this performance output based aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because you've lived in Germany for, I think, 15 years, and you've, so to say, been onboarded onto the German system, onto the German motherboard.
Yeah, so to say.
And then I'm assuming you're also working with Kenyan companies, or when you come to Kenya, like you are currently, you try to offer the solutions that Oki Solutions comes up with to Kenyan companies. So is there a big challenge when now you are trying to deal with Kenyan companies, Kenyan CEOs, etc.?
On the challenges...
Because I'm assuming, for instance, they might say you've been too Germanized. You are telling us a lot about German systems and German solutions and a German motherboard. We have a Kenyan motherboard down here.
Actually, I'm kienyeji. I have a big advantage coming from rural area called Kamukuywa. So most of these Kenyan CEOs, Kamukuywa in Bungoma County.
Bungoma County.
Yeah, very deep. So most of the people even up there, they have never had my experience, what I had. Yeah. And I'm really proud of that. It was hard time, but it made me who I am right now. So I don't experience that because they quickly realize I am not lecturing, I'm not bringing solutions, rather I'm involving and I'm talking from a perspective which is of both sides. And for me, I am extremely proud of both sides. Yeah. So then they realize that, and now we start kind of tailoring together.
Okay. Talking
of the challenges, the business challenges actually in Kenya and Germany, some might be similar than you expect. You can imagine when we are starting, we have never done fundraising, by the way, as Oki. Yeah. So bootstrapping all the way. And our first project was our hospital project. Yeah. This project, of course, for me, it was very dear because I was trying to solve a problem of people traveling 100 kilometers away for basic diagnostics. Yeah. So I said, why can't we build German quality hospital, and make it affordable in rural areas. And also, luckily, for us at the time, my wife, she's also has a disability, and she was very passionate about it. So for her, this was something extremely important, but she's extremely smart. But the German society does not also give her the opportunity because it says, people with disability, you have to stay there, they don't look twice, which again makes you think about the aspect of diversity. How many wonderful, great people are closing out. You are at our booth at the expo. That booth was designed by her, one person, in bed. So you can imagine the skill, where we are, how we are thinking, everyone.
You are referring to the job fair?
Yes, to the recent
which was organized
job
by
fair.
The German embassy.
Yes.
In conjunction with the German Chamber of Commerce and GIZ.
Yes,
and somebody mentioned around that many of the people there were entrepreneurs. So you are not an entrepreneur, right?
Never been. Actually, I saw that and I kind of laughed because knowing German regulations and everything. But I understood because I deal with Kenyans.
And the
My
Kenyan
business,
culture.
I deal with Kenyans and Kenyan cultures. So even for us on our side, we were a bit disappointed. Not everyone could. But, we're not conversators. We're problem solvers. So when something like that happened for us, we ask ourselves, what can we do as a company to create more awareness? What is our role? And internally, we immediately started saying, hey, can we get a couple of German companies, since we're part also of the German Business Association, and start doing in different areas some awareness about, the bilateral relationship, what's happening, just to do our path. And that's also an attitude I would like to see most people in general, both Germans and Kenyan, adapt. Yeah. What can you do? That is the opportunity right there. That is the innovation right there.
Yeah. How about the challenges as an entrepreneur in Germany?
Oh, the challenges
that maybe you have faced over the past, I don't know. When was OKKI Solutions founded?
So Oki Solutions, the Kenyan entity, was founded in 2019.
2019.
Yes. Then we had, of course, like we said, bootstrapping until last year. That's when we formed the GmbH.
The GmbH.
Part of it is because you need the 25,000.
€1,000.
Yeah,
exactly.
for people who don't know.
Yeah. Stammkapital, right?
Stammkapital, yeah. But also you need, now part of the challenges is you cannot just do business as a Kenyan company, regardless how massive you are, just enter the European side and do business, right?
Yeah.
So you need to build traction. One of the biggest challenges I remember was pitching, fundraising. Yeah. And I would go to pitch to speak to bankers, German business people. And you can guess where the conversation ended becoming.
Yeah.
I went to Africa in 1978.
Oh.
And those times I didn't have a lot of patience. My leg would just start shaking.
Yeah,
You are
because you know where the story is headed into.
Yeah. And most of the time my wife would just hold me like, okay. And the risk management, the risk picture, basically at the end of the day, you start being judged as a continent.
Yeah.
Something happened here and this. And the information was always outdated. So Kenya has changed. The last 15 years I've been traveling here already has changed. When I came here, I stayed in Germany almost 10 years. Yeah. Before I came to Kenya.
And when you came back, it was a culture shock.
When I came back,
I stayed for 4 years.
Yeah.
And when I came back, the culture shock was immense for the first 2 weeks. So I can imagine 10 years.
Exactly. And the reason I stayed for 10 years is also part of the challenges. Yeah. I had visa issues. I actually got a deportation letter. A lot of people don't know this.
Oh.
Yeah. And I had to deal with a lot at the time. Yeah. So you see, even as a founder at that time, you are still going through everything else people, even normal foreigners are not going through.
Yeah.
And dealing with that and at the same time trying to innovate, it brings a lot to you.
Yeah.
So quickly we realized the challenges, you cannot just solve market entry or bridge. We realize we need competence.
Yeah.
Right? So we said, okay, what makes Germany great? It's the performance Leistung, right? So we need competence.
Yeah.
And you need to understand the culture. It took me almost 6 years to integrate. So we're like, how can we make this much easier exposure? Yeah.
Okay.
Then we need connections.
Yeah.
We quickly realized we need Germans on our side. Yeah. So for us, it was like, okay, we need Germans who understand the business landscape. And instead of fighting in boardrooms against, be it any kind of discrimination, why wouldn't it be easier to show, the Germans who can represent us what Kenya is about?
Yeah.
And we switch that narrative for Kenya and Africa. Yeah.
So we were talking about
the challenges.
the challenges, exactly. And you saying you needed Germans on your side also?
Yes. So I needed Germans, and like I was saying, we needed, so first of all, to have the competence, right? Then we needed to merge the cultures, and of course now the connections. Yeah. So we realized you need both networks. You need both in the Kenyan side, and in Germany you need the Germans, to be able to do, what we wanted to do, because we're claiming we're bridging the countries. And this way, it enabled us to now come up with now what we call the OKKI 3 Cs. So competence, culture, and connections.
Okay.
And basically the whole company, regardless what we do, that's what kind of models our business.
Okay.
Yeah? So we insist a lot on competence because the challenges, we faced. Yeah. And that's why even now in the job fair, which was hosted by the German embassy, by the way, which German embassy was part of the connection.
Yeah.
For what it was extremely important that we have a good relationship, and we are our own private ambassadors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Kenyan German embassy has been extremely big and offering us a lot of support, which we're really grateful about it. So that kind of connection and being able to bring German companies, German founders, German CEOs, to give them that different perspective, and being able to engage Kenyans at every phase, regardless of the age, at every phase, to give them the exposure, because it's not just about excitement. We don't want that. We don't want to be excited about Germany and this. Germans are excited about coming to Kenya to the, but it's about amplifying, what's good in our country, right? Can we do it at this high performance level, and can we also showcase that in a global kind of avenue? And so these are a lot of challenges. There's been a lot of talks coming back to the job fair on labor mobility. And I had the liberty to engage a couple of diaspora founders in Germany just to see their perspective. And one of the things, there's a talk about semi-skills and people talking down things like nursing. I am a nurse by profession. I'm proud of it, and I learned so much about it. And I feel it's not about that. There is no job which should be beneath anyone. It's about the competence.
And the value that you bring to the society in general.
And it's about how can you set yourself up for success, regardless where you begin. So you have to create those paths. You have to go out, set up people for success, regardless where they are, enable them, to go where they want to reach. Because a lot of people forget the privilege. If you go, let's say, to a country through a sponsorship and you have payment and all this, and you end up doing medicine, engineering, you're not the same with everyone. People have different struggles. So see that perspective, and we have to be together. We have to see everyone's perspective, and the goal should be, how do we build, first of all, Kenya for Kenya, but at the same time, how do we add value at a global level? And here's where German come to place. So we need to make sure that connection works for both countries.
So there is a line of inquiry I wanted to explore, and because I was thinking maybe you had gone the funding route, the fundraising route. But you actually just let us know here that you started with the bootstrapping path. In Kenya, sometimes, especially in the area of startups, the so-called Silicon Savannah, there are arguments that if you're a Kenyan, an indigenous founder, you have an idea, you want to do a startup, it's sometimes very difficult to raise funding. However, what people have realized is when you, let's say, bring a partner from the global north, it's fundraising becomes slightly easier. I mean, it doesn't become extremely easy, of course, but in comparison to indigenous Kenyans, indigenous Nigerians, or South Africans, then it becomes slightly easier. And so when you're talking about you had to bring German partners because of also of the competence, but do you think that, I don't know if you engage with other African entrepreneurs in Germany, like once you're in Germany, is it maybe because you're based in Germany, is it slightly easier for you if you were to go the fundraising model for you to, let's say, get money for a startup?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, you need the missing ingredient, the color spice to add, to make it more interesting. And believe it or not, I was surprised this is a big habit of a lot of Kenyan startups. The first year I came back, and the Silicon Savannah, I went there, and most of the startups which were being called Kenyan,
Yeah.
I would say they were American.
Yeah, American and British.
Yes, so, and for me, that was not from a discriminatory part of view. For me, that was a turn-off in one way.
Yeah.
Because we emphasize on collaboration and connection. And also the fact that using the Kenyanness, to get the funding, then, there was a big company, I think, remember that time, which IPO'd. I think we're going to keep the name out. And it claimed it was African, just to notice it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fundraising in Germany, of course, fundraising is always difficult regardless where you are. But what Germany has a lot of funding options. Yeah. So the government, the business, there is a lot of funding options. The biggest challenge is the volumes. I remember we were trying to do a project, and we had a very clear volume what we wanted to. And one of the offers we got from one of the agencies was like, oh no, you need to increase this to 10 million euros so that we can fund. You're like, if I had access to 10 million euros,
I would be coming to you guys.
I would be coming to you guys. And if I was, so fundraising is difficult.
Yeah, because I even know of certain programs that shall remain unnamed.
Yes.
Where they say we provide matching funds.
Yes.
So you have to bring something to the table, and then we provide matching funds, and then we can provide you with the matching funds, and then you kickstart your project.
Our biggest turnoff when it came to fundraising was, your idea is great. You're solving a problem.
Yeah.
Then you go to a website, they say, hey, we can fund up to 100,000, right?
Yeah.
Then you start applying to the website. They start asking you rudimentary paperwork questions. And you're like, wouldn't it be important to know my solution, my innovation,
First.
what I'm doing first, instead of, taking me through circles, then telling me, what is your CV? Do you have this paperwork in this? I'm like, entrepreneurs, you don't need to showcase my bachelor or master's long as I'm solving a problem.
That's the traditional path.
Yes.
Show us your papers.
Your paperwork.
But if you're an entrepreneur, you are supposed to come up with a solution.
Or innovate.
It's supposed to be completely outside the box.
Yes, and that should be the forefront. And I know in German spaces, actually, we're going to talk about this with the next guest. In German spaces, there is opportunities to fundraise and everything.
Okay.
But also there's another issue with fundraising, which there is fundraising for the sake of fundraising.
Yeah.
And for us, that was dangerous. So you don't want just to fundraise, then you end up in debt and this.
Yeah.
So we needed to have skin in the game. We needed to have a product to know that the product actually works.
Yeah.
And I was working at the time, all over Germany as a freelancer, hospitals, and at the same time, funding the company.
Yeah.
And that was the sacrifice which we had to do. To be able to get where we are right now. And it's the best decision we ever made. Because the people who we met who came into the company, they are people who believed in what we're doing, people who understood the cultural context between Kenya and Germany, people who are versatile, in business, in networks. So even now, if someone said, hey, do you guys want funding? The biggest answer will be no. It has to be extremely, extremely attractive. And
Not just
that's something
funding.
We are proud of.
Not just funding for the sake of funding.
That's one thing. But also, it gives us complete access, right?
Is it also because you think when, let's say, you get the funds easily, it might also put unnecessary pressure on you? Because you're like, I've received this huge amount of money from this group and from that group. I have to maybe expand the company in a different direction. I have to maybe do some other stuff and not just have the money lying in the bank.
Yes. We will not have the patience to come up with a product the way it is. We will be like trying to make a quick buck. We'll go like, I don't know, we're trying to sell Kenyans castles. For us, we try to tell the truth. Hey, you're going, Yes, because if I'm giving you money, I expect a return.
Yeah.
So just remember, if you are fundraising, it will, if you are not well prepared with your product, it's going to affect your model.
Yeah.
Because not every investor is giving you the patience, the right investor will understand your business model, won't give you an ultimatum.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest, what I've seen engaging a lot of African startups, in general, is whenever they're fundraising, they put a number. One, they forget themselves. So someone says, I'm trying to fundraise 100,000, 50,000. Their own salary is not there.
Yeah.
They are struggling at the time. Yeah. And that's one of the worst thing you're doing, because you're telling the investor, if you give me 50,000, I'm going to make this magic happen. For magic to happen, you need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
You cannot be hungry and you have 50,000 in the bank and you think, you're going to deliver value. Yeah. So I think fundraising needs a bit of patience and expertise. I understand for people who fundraise or start, because bootstrapping is hectic. The advantage of bootstrapping is it gives you time to fail and to fail forward. Fundraising, you do not have time to fail. You have to be quick. You have to deliver for someone. You're constantly under pressure.
If you fail, it's like you've been in a very bad accident and your car is written off by the insurance.
Exactly. That's why you see the big bankruptcy. Yeah. But, bootstrapping for us, what we have learned, it gives you time to build. So you have a more long-term vision. So for us, it's not like, we have a short term, we have to do this within 3 years. That's why we're doing different generations, when it comes to our profile, because we know for this, what we are achieving to be able to be completely achieved, it's going to take time, but it's going to be impactful with time as it goes. So it's on our own terms. We don't have an outsider telling us, hey, we gave you some money. It's now 3 years down the line. What have you achieved?
Yeah, and it also allows you to move at your own pace.
Yes. But just to add there, for me, definitely, I would love to definitely help out a lot of startups.
Okay.
I think from a founder perspective, this is an area where I would love to get hold with different German investor Europeans and definitely be an investor just to make it much easier.
Okay.
Because I've seen startups which maybe need like 1,000 euros to do something.
Yeah.
But what they lack, you're like, I might have the 1,000 euros, but seeing, again, we go back to the processes.
Yeah.
Seeing the processes and this, it's not, the 1,000 euro won't be enough, One, and you need to a bit twist one or two things, but you need someone with a very open mind, and the ambition to drive forward, to be able to hear this constructive criticism and to know it's for their own benefit. And I liked that more, but fundraising is for sharks.
Okay.
So I hear 1,000 euros. I tell you, in 5 years, I want my 15,000.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of investors, it's really difficult at the beginning, if you don't have experience, to point them out, and you need a lot of network support and help for people who have experience. And we are glad that we got there in time, and we have the right people.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about bureaucracy? I mean, Germany is legendary for having a bureaucracy issue. The German philosopher and probably the modern father of bureaucracy, Max Weber, once referred to it as the Stahlhartes Gehäuse. Yeah?
Yeah.
A steel cage that chains everybody into it. I don't know what has been your experience on the bureaucratic side of things.
Horrible. Remember I told you, for me, I was almost getting deported. So I learned the German system in and out because of that. Yeah. My wife has had to study German immigration law just because of that. And the paperwork involved, and also in companies and this.
Yeah.
And even for us as a company right now, we're like, our most valuable asset is if we find a German who loves, administrative work.
Exactly.
We're like, that's the person, because it's part of it. And yes, it is over bureaucratizing Germany, but I have another extreme case when I look at Kenya. when I look at, for example, privacy, or when I looked at the culture of kusalimia, and when I look how mobile payment works, I'm like, this is nightmare for Germans. And but then I see also the reason behind it.
Okay.
So it's a balance. The thing is, a balance is somewhere in between. Yeah? You cannot avoid it, but you can be efficient in a way where, if you have people who understand, again, we come back, you need Germans, right? And you need Germans who understand how the system also works.
Yeah.
Because regardless how long you're going to stay there, someone who's born with bureaucracy, they are a step ahead.
True.
To make that possible. Yeah.
How do you see the future prospects of, let's say, your business on both sides of the divide? So from the German side, but also with your Kenyan partners and potential partners in the future?
Yeah, the future I see is going to be great. The future outlook, despite everything happening, let's say in Europe, for me, I see a positive future, and I'm not saying that as an optimist, simply because I see the coming of Africa. You see, the generation, right?
Yeah.
We have now the most valuable asset, right, which is time.
Yeah.
So we have time, and this is what also all African governments needs to realize. And in the future, if we get it right, because we have the ambition. When I saw the Kenyans, when they're speaking, the Gen Zs, and my generation, how we had to change the cultural mentality, what happened with our authoritative upbringing and everything.
Yeah.
When I see how we have now adapted as adults, and what we're doing out there, I see with the competence we're building, everything that we're doing, eventually we are going to be able to make Kenya work for Kenya.
Okay.
But with the image, what we learn up there, because we're going to be quick at learning it. And remember, once you get out of survival mode, and you get to a place where you are comfortable, then you can absorb information. You have the ambition, you have the hunger, and that's what we have as Kenyans. And once we do that, and we can showcase that in a great way to the world, we will build stronger bilateral relationships, right? So you'll start hearing the narrative changing, saying, hey, you know what? Kenyans are really great. We want to work with more Kenyans. And the issue about, people talk a lot about remittance, and for me, I was like, it took me years before I could send my mom 50 euros or 100 euros. We don't even want to go there. So I'm like, that's not the biggest impact. The biggest impact is the knowledge. Is the knowledge and is the exposure.
Okay.
So because we know what our issues is, solutions are already out there. In Kenya, when I walk around in Kenya, things which are being done, not digitalized or this, I know there is a solution. But it's the systems. It's the systems which need to change. And to change the system, you have to overload it. You have to overload it with people who want change and doers. So we'll be getting a lot of doers. And for us as Oki, we'll be contributing a lot on that competence building, a lot on that exposure, and a lot on setting people up for success. We'll never say, hey, you are desperate, you want to go to Germany, come to Oki, let's send you to Germany. So we'll always say, no, listen, you want to go, we will train you first before you go. We have been getting a lot of requests. Everyone is like, if I have this certificate, can I go? We're like, not with Oki, because that's not our model. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are wondering, why are these people turning down? But it's because of the experience we have.
Maybe you can give an explain about that, like, why don't you guys go that model?
One, my experience. I felt that if I had more information about Germany before I went to Germany, I will have a smooth ride. One, I will never have chosen to go to university. I will have known about the Ausbildung, the dual studiums, right? So I will know going to university will be the wrong move for someone who does not have financial support from anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will go to do an Ausbildung, get paid while I work and gain experience.
Yeah.
So that means within 3 years, even though the social interaction would have been maybe tricky, but after 3 years I will have a job. You know this.
Yeah.
I'll be working and financially stable.
Definitely.
I wasn't stable for like half my time I was in Germany. 7 years, 8 years I wasn't financially stable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all because I made the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Then secondly, it's about the language. The language is not just about certificates. Language is to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
The barriers it breaks. I tell a lot of people, listen, when you see a mzungu coming and speaking to you Swahili, you drop all your shields.
Yeah.
Just that moment, you are excited and you're like, hey, you start conversations, right?
It's like it breaks down your defenses.
Your defenses are gone. Yeah, just that approach.
Yeah.
And it works both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In both directions.
Both directions. And also it has a huge political effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at, just to touch on, because everyone knows what's going on in Europe, right?
Yeah.
And basically I've seen also people in Europe who are really liberal, pro foreigners starting to change. Yeah. Why are they starting to change the narrative? They're not saying, hey, we are discriminating against foreigners. They're saying, no, we want people who want to adapt to our culture, right?
So you're talking in terms of the far-right populism?
Yes. So, I don't want to talk on that behalf. I'm talking about the middle ground now.
Okay.
Because, they are gaining populace, right?
Yeah.
So why are they gaining populace? It means there is a lot of conversion happening in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the extremists, I don't think that's something for me inexcusable. Yeah? That one I'm going to leave them out. I'm talking about now the general decent public, which are like divided when they hear, hey, we're going to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are they divided? Because we have the image. For me, I get also discriminated.
Yeah.
Right now, well, black is always the first color to be discriminated. Yeah. This is not a hidden truth. So when it became the refugee issues, my friends and I said, oh, we know now all foreigners, we are going to be refugees.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, all foreigners
you are put in one basket.
You are put in one basket. Yeah. And this is why it's important to be able, to integrate for this culture. Because it's not about all foreigners, it's about the competence level. Yeah. Because if you can't speak the language, right, you don't want to integrate to a land. My question is, why are you in that land?
Yeah.
Simply put, yeah, because it's the same. If a German comes to Kenya, speaks only German, and tries to impose, you'll be like, hey, what's going on here? Yeah. So it will be unacceptable. Yeah?
True.
So, and this is why we want to build a better narrative for Kenya. We're like, for Oki, we want people who go through Oki, regardless what happens out there, our partners, since we have direct business partners in Germany who tell us, hey, what they need, they will never say, hey, you brought us someone who was great on paper, but then at work it was an issue. So you are part of the problem instead of the solution. And that's the model we are holding on, and that's the model which will keep going. Also because we have the employers. They are our client. They trust us. They trust our model. So for us, we want to keep that quality. And also at the same time, we want people, when they go to Germany, to be set up for success. I want people, when they go to Germany, the moment they are on their feet, they think, what can I do for home? What can I innovate? What can I go back? Right now, most of the Kenyans in my circle, the ones they came around the same time, you ask them about Kenya, they say, to hell with Kenya. No, this is serious. No, to hell with Kenya. This country did not help me. To be honest, for me,
I was like that for a moment.
Me too, everyone.
Just for a moment.
I think everyone was like that. For me too, when I was suffering, getting deportation and everything, there was a time I just needed a simple paperwork, and it took some months. And I had to do without the paperwork, and I was like, oh, if I got that paperwork, I'll have been a huge patriot. At the time. So for that moment, for me too was like, Okay, to help. But right now,
Yeah.
I'm one of the biggest funds for both countries.
Yeah.
And I don't hold anything against, because I think that's what we do as innovators and problem solvers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question about AI. There has
Yeah.
been a lot of hype about AI. I don't know, are you guys as Oki Solutions integrating AI into your thinking? Maybe not currently, but maybe in the coming years, in the coming months and maybe years.
Well, good thing we're not fundraising, because this will be a great plug right now to throw in a bit of AI.
A pitch.
Yeah. Let's talk about cutting edge technology generally. So in Oki, basically, we are an education and tech company. It's just a lot of people don't realize that until it's later.
Yeah.
A lot of things we do, we need the infrastructure. Yeah. And of course, the technology which we have access to in Germany, most of the time is superior. Yeah. So what we do for us as Oki, we try to adapt that technology to Kenya. So we keep the infrastructure and everything, but we bring the technology context.
Yeah.
And for example, for the platforms, so for the platform we are using currently and the one which we're building, of course, AI has to be part of that, right?
Yeah.
And this is also because of languages, right? We cannot have German teachers all the time are the one doing the corrections of the language, the translations, but importantly, when it came to AI, we wanted, or we still want, a translator that actually understands the language, not just, throwing things here and there. And it has to have data also from Kenya, So because we need that raw data. We need that raw data, how when it works, when it interprets, it's working, because it knows, oh, there is a Kenyan context here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, AI companies, they don't do that. Even for Africa right now, it's just created either in the US and Europe, then it's adapted data to Africa, which we use.
Yeah.
And now this is why we are in more out there looking for partners, who are willing, to create this cutting technology, or who have the cutting edge technology, but to take the African and Kenyan perspective and bring it in there.
Yeah.
Not just bring the European perspective and adapt it, but rather, vitu kwa ground as they are, and bring there.
Okay.
So that will be one of example for how for us adapting AI, and that's just...
You're not one of the people who are like, AI will be bad for business, like it might lead to, I don't know, 300 million jobs being lost in the next 10 years.
And not really.
From an entrepreneurial point of view.
Or from an entrepreneurial point of view, for me, as someone who bootstrapped, as a company bootstrapped, I can see how amazing it's gonna do. Think about the bureaucracy, the paperwork you have to do, And so for me, AI cutting edge technology always has to be mixed reality.
Yeah.
When I think about mixed reality, I think about that kid who was in Kamukuywa in a village. You don't have access to the world.
Yeah.
Now imagine you can go online or go to a platform and they have pieces, every single piece of a Maybach.
Yeah.
How to assemble it, how to do piece by piece, and you can move them around and build it. You see, this is accessibility. So that kind of accessibility is what technology is offering.
Okay.
So when I hear AI, when I hear people complaining about jobs and this, nothing will ever replace humanity.
And humans.
Yeah, and also we are humans, the ones feeding the AI. So that's one thing. So
and also development is not always very linear.
Yeah.
Like it can take so many other directions. But the way some people think, it's like, it will just destroy jobs, full stop.
Exactly, but look at the internet. Something of the same thing. You look people how they looked at the future, flying cars and this. But the coexistence is always there. And that's the most important thing. And the most important thing also is always to think about accessibility.
Yeah.
For me, like I said, I always think about that rural area kid. And technology enables, bring the world, the globe there.
Yeah.
Because right now we are having a very unfair advantage or disadvantage, call it that way. Because kids out there in the world, they are exposed to the global technologies and this.
Yeah.
These are the same kids which young Kenyans are going to compete in the job market
Against.
and you have never used this technology.
Yeah.
So, for example, right now, my nephew does actuarial science.
Yeah.
And they don't use Excel and laptops and this. I'm like, how can you be a farmer without a farm, without a djembe? You are just doing all theory.
Yeah.
And this is standardized. How can you not know Windows 365?
Yeah.
You are fourth year university and you think you're going to compete at a global level. So we are already disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And it's time that we find a way, how do we access this? So for us as Oki, that's how we are using technology. And this is what the role we play in tech. So we build for Kenya, but with, of course, those cutting edge infrastructure and technology.
Okay.
So even our partnerships here in Kenya with university or tech entities, that's our goal. We open those doors. We say, okay, what is the infrastructure in EU? What is the software? Have you guys heard about this? Can we give you exposure to it? Then let us build something which has the superiority of the infrastructure, but has the social aspect of Kenya. And that's not being done. And I welcome all entrepreneurs there.
Yeah.
Build things that have that.
Okay. Before we go to your parting shot, on a cheeky note, so at the beginning you talked about Oki and how the name came about.
Yes.
Like it's Kiko and then it's reversed.
Yeah.
And growing up in Kenya, I mean, we all grew up with Sheng.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Sheng is reversing words. So I don't know, did that play a role? And the funny part is when I was in Germany, I remember I met somebody, I think, from Bosnia or something.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, actually in the Balkan states also, there was a way in which they could flip words so that first syllable words, you simply change them around. Did that play a role in you coming up with the name Oki?
No, that's interesting. But coming...
The Sheng culture where you change words around so the parents can't know what you guys are talking about.
No. Being born in Mombasa, I won't be doing Mombasa justice. Actually, for those kids out there who felt bad that people bullied them with their name, you know, Kiko means the smoking thing, right?
Yeah.
The thing. So people would make fun of me, Kikoi, you know. And I thought, you know what? The thing which you're making fun of me, I'm gonna make it great.
Yeah.
So that was the whole idea, but I didn't want to make it so obvious saying Kiko. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's just do it. Okay. That's where it came from.
Okay, Francisco, parting shot.
Parting shot is I would like everyone, you know, especially us as Kenyans, to have that anger of being competent. Like the shortcut, the obsessions with academic grades, credential, it's all great, but at the end of the day, it's doers who change the world, And I usually say like this, at Oki, when we are hiring the CV, even sometimes we realize, we are almost signing the contract, we're like, we don't have a CV, because it's about the person, character, and what can you do, what is your competence. And this is also something I realized in Germany the very first time. You know, in Kenya, yes, we are smart. People say this, everyone is saying this on the media, Kenyans are smart. Yeah, we are. But we do not have exposure to the industry, and we do not have exposure to doing. Germans, vice versa. They do. You know, whatever they learn, they can do. They can build. I remember playing how do you call it? Pool. And at that time, I was so bad at it. And my German friends were like, didn't you do basic geometry? And for me, I was, of course I did, but what are you talking about
mathematical
here?
set in primary school.
So, and that's the kind of energy, adaptability I would like to see more. That we obsess on how do we get things done? How can I gain the competence to get something done? But not this obsession with, hey,
academic credentials.
Yes, starters. I
have a-
feel that is a starters thing. And we need to move away from starters and start doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Francisco, thank you so much for coming to the Nubianometry podcast. I think the insights that you've given us are quite important, especially as a Kenyan, an entrepreneur who has lived in Germany for like 15 years, but you're also coming to Kenya regularly to touch base with Kenyan partners, Kenyan CEOs, companies, etc. And one last thing, you said the 3 C's of Oki Solutions were?
Competence, culture, and connection.
I think that's the best part to end this podcast episode. Thank you for watching this episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.